All right, welcome back. Today we have a clone of my work rifle. So I'll kind of talk through how I have it set up, why I have it set up the way that it is, and kind of walk through some of these pieces for you guys just to give you, some good content, and maybe spark some interest of your own. So the first thing that kind of jumps out is that it's a 14.5 gun, not a 10.3 gun. I deliberately used the 14.5 upper for pretty much everything as opposed to 10.3 for a few reasons. So first, suppressors really weren't a thing. So I wasn't really gaining anything by having a short gun, but also that suppressor, right, adds a lot of weight up front. It's a fulcrum, makes the gun a little bit heavier in a way that I don't want it to be. And it also cranks heat back into the system. So where I was with this rifle was already pretty hot to begin with. I didn't need to be adding excess heat back to the rifle, which negatively impacts reliability. I'd also note that if you're really getting on the gun, you're doing a lot of high rep training, high round count training, that 10.3 inch Mark 18 upper is basically a 6,000 round gun before you start wearing out at least the gas port, if not some of the rifling, just because it's so short. Another advantage for the 14.5 gun in my eyes is that I'm getting a little bit more velocity, so I can zero this EOTech at 100 and have less drop at 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. when I'm running a optic like this that has no BDC in there or mils. My 14.5 gun that I had, I got to shoot the upper with a 1:8 LPVO and some green tip. And I found that it actually ended up being like a 1 1/4, 1.5 minute rifle. So it was super accurate. It was very reliable. It shot real soft, especially compared to a 10.3 gun. So I saw no reason to ever use a 10.3 upper. And then the last thing is that I just really like the feel of a 14.5 gun, being able to put my hand right where it is on the handguard right now. So you're hard pressed to really push me towards a short gun unless suppressors are mandatory. Some other things about this setup, I did run the two sling points, so one at the rear and one up front here, like you've seen in pretty much every video. And then I deliberately chose the Magpul point just because it's easy to mount to the top rail and then come in over there and hook it in. It's just a nice, quick interface back and forth, and it kind of mimics the position of the QD socket on the 416 rail from Geisley. So again, that position is kind of like ideal for the sling at like that mid-mount location. Up front, we had a nice NT4 flash hider to go with a nice can. You've heard me talk about that before. It's just a basic A2 flash hider, which works just fine. So nothing really crazy there. I've never really liked brakes or anything too wild on my ARs, so I've always been happy with an NT4 flash hider. So on top here, I got some airsoft clones. Yep, sorry guys, gotta confess to you, these are not legit WMXs or LA5 Bravos, but they do the service to you guys, the audience, of kind of showing you what I had set up here. So the white light, just white or IR in this case, right over on the side. I come under with my finger and press if I wanted to use it. Really, I was probably never ever going to use the white light or the IR. It was there as a backup to the multifunction aiming laser. So I was fortunate enough to have an LA5 Bravo, and what's unique about that is that it has both a high setting for the visible and the IR spectrum. So there's two blue screws for you to take out, make your boss upset. Now, why is that important? Well, you always hear people talk about using their PEC or LA5, wherever it is, as a backup sighting system. And it's, again, a little cynical, right? Because you don't have a high power laser, you can't really see it in the daylight. With a high power daylight, red laser, you can see that in the daylight. You can 100% use this for a backup sight system, which kind of leads into why there's no irons on this gun. So first off, we already discussed it, right? My laser is my backup sight system. Secondly, there wasn't really going to be any room on the back end because on occasion I would put a magnifier on this rifle. So I have a choice, right? I can have a third sighting system on the gun, or I can have a 3-wide magnifier. Pretty easy choice there. So no irons, just the LA5 Bravo and the EOTech. Another nice thing about the LA5 is just, in my mind, the way it fits in my hand. Right, I like it right there. I like to activate off the device itself, not putting a pressure pad on the gun. That way, when I'm using it, I know I'm using it. When I'm not, I'm in a very good hand position for performance shooting. When using the laser, I'll also camp the gun slightly, like so. So when I come up, it's a little bit, 45, 35. And what that's doing for me is putting the laser directly above the bore. So then all my holdovers, CQB distances, rooms, etc., are the same whether I'm using the optic or the laser, right? They're still vertical over the bore. I'm doing the same hold, whether with visible or IR laser or the optic. Speaking of visible laser, just kind of train of thought here. It's really awesome to have this because you can do some reps with that laser in dry fire without putting all your kit, without putting your nods on. You can just rep it on the same targets, but you're using your day laser versus IR. All right, optics. I did have an EOTech. It's the EXPS3 TAC 0. It's the standard 65-minute of angle outer ring with the 1-minute dot. I had two because one had parasympathetic drain. Essentially, I put a battery in and it would die overnight. So turned that one in, got a new one, and never had a problem from then on out. I changed the batteries in everything pretty much every week or two, depending on what was going on. And I've never had anything die on me. I've never had this thing start flashing saying it has a low battery. I just replace the battery proactively, and that's good enough for me. Down in the lower, I had a standard H buffer, and then I had the Geisley two-stage trigger. So the one obviously in the work gun was the full auto trigger, which is pretty interesting because a lot of people don't realize that the Super Select Fire trigger is a two-stage trigger in semi and a single-stage trigger in full auto. So talk about, how triggers are being safe or not. Like, we have a single-stage, very light trigger for full auto. And the safety for that is the fact that I need to go a full 180 on that selector before deciding to go to auto, right? So safety and triggers is not just about the trigger itself, it's about the whole system and how you're going to employ it. So for this clone, right, I did not put the SSF trigger in, put the standard SSA trigger, and it's just really nice. It's a massive advantage to the shooter to have a Geisley two-stage trigger in your rifle as opposed to a standard issue trigger, especially when you start looking at rifles that have the 3-round burst and how those triggers are all just basically not good at any point in the pull. So fortunate there. A2 grip, I would have taken it off. I never got around to it. I found that it was fine, right? There are better grips out there. You guys know I like the SPR grip, but this thing on this kind of rifle, it's not gonna get me killed in the streets. PMags were the flavor of the day. I like PMags because when they break and that's all there is to it, right? The Phillips crack off, there's no question about it. Aluminum mags work just fine. I'm a PMag guy typically, so that's what I had. Sling, this is the GBRS group sling. I used it the whole time. I really liked it. There's nothing wrong with it. And I'll do another video about that, just kind of updating it. And again, I have that multi-sling point set up so I can come over on the gun. I can have a corner-to-corner setup, or I can have a kind of close-in setup like I was having before. There we go. Right, so I can go across the whole gun and have the sling set up like that for a tighter fit to my body, or I can do some traditional sling marksmanship type stuff. Standard charging handle, nothing interesting there. It's just what was on the rifle, and again, it never bothered me enough to want to take it off. And frankly, with gear on, it's kind of nice having the standard charging handle because it doesn't snag on anything, which is huge. I don't like my rifle catching on my plate carrier. The stock is kind of neat. So it's the LMT SOPMOD stock. I put the Tech 10 swinger mount down here, so I can run that sling attachment up there. And then I have a aftermarket QD socket from IWC. So that's what's enabling me to have a QD on this gun as opposed to routing the sling all the way through and not having any QD capability. we see we got this dope card on the stock. So this dope card is actually for a M110K1. So I had more than one rifle, one of which was an M110K1, and this dope, right, was more important for that rifle. This thing doesn't really need any dope. So I would just take this stock off and switch back and forth. The M110 had a mag pull, I think it was the ACS stock, and that stock had no QD point. So I didn't like that. Essentially, I would grab the M110, take off the stock, put the stock on the M110, use the exact same sling. I had a very similar PEC and laser setup on the M110, different optic, and it was like plug and play M110 to M4A1 and vice versa, which goes back to why 14 5-gun, because now both rifles, my hand goes in the same spot, even though one is about 8 or 9 pounds and the other is 17.6 pounds loaded, which gets heavy. To wrap it up, guys, I developed an affinity for this over a long time of use. I think it's still a great setup. A carbine length gas system, quad rail is not the latest and greatest, but this rifle is 100% capable, right? It'll do anything I need it to do. I do look forward to taking it out and training with it every now and again, just because it's kind of there for old time's sake. If you have a rifle that you deployed with or worked with, I recommend you guys build a clone of it, right? It's going to be something that's familiar to you, and it's nice to have like a little piece of your time in the service. If you guys got any questions, let me know, and please in the comments let me know what your next clone is going to be and what you did work with. Thanks.